So we are just about ready to go. Enjoy your food, and as soon as I get the hi sign from, all right. So we are live at another Applied Portfolio Management presentation session. I want to thank everybody so much for taking time out of their schedules to come critique our students and help develop the next generation of financial analysts coming out of Washburn. I'm Rob Wiegand, and I'll keep my opening comments nice and brief so that we can listen to the real stars of the evening. So first, a quick rundown, some thank yous. My executive advisory board members. I have benefited over the years from comments from people like Bill Greiner, who's been with the program since day one, and Mike Orozco, regional president of US Bank, who hires a lot of our people. Alumni Advisory Board. About half the people in this room are former program grads who come back and just donate their time to help us keep this program lively and put a little pressure on the students at the end of the semester. And they all know what it feels like to be in the hot seat. I'd like to thank Dr. Julie Mazachek and the Washburn University Foundation for trusting us with $100,000 for the past 7 years. I hope we've taken good care of it for them. I'd like to thank Dean David Sollers, who keeps this program alive and digs deep in his budget every year to get us the rooms, the data, the travel money, and everything that we spend money on in developing our students. I'd like to thank Mayo Schmidt, also an executive advisory board member, and of course, providing us with our fantastic finance lab. Greg and Rhonda Brenneman, who brought me here. I am the Brenneman Professor of Business, and I'm really glad that I went out to dinner with a guy named David and accepted a job offer. I want to thank this semester's APM students. I have really enjoyed working with this group. They are a team, if anything else, of hardworking and very intellectually curious future professionals. And I have one more person that I want to thank tonight. A good friend of mine, a fabulous colleague, and the only person in this room who can say, once upon a time, he even taught Bill Greiner something about investments. You know who I'm talking about.
Dennis Nelson.
I'm talking about somebody who's influenced everyone in this room, Professor Gary Baker, 40 years at Washburn. Up on the third floor, we're also a team. This is definitely a team effort. So, I know this is going to sound like a joke. 3 students walk into an investments contest, but it's no joke. We were invited to compete with 33 other nationally ranked business schools in an investing and trading contest. It started in the fall. It was sort of a warm-up for the more rigorous portfolio management course. So we competed with some schools you may have heard of, like Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, NYU, University of Texas, Rice. And I'm happy to report that we had some very significant placements in this contest. Washburn Finance senior Xavier Lewis earned a top placement in the long-short alpha competition. He was our gunslinger, doing matched long and short positions. Tonight, you will hear from Applied Portfolio Management senior Adrian Dela Cruz a little later in the program, but Adrian earned a top placement trading technology, media, and telecom stocks. It was the most competitive category. And also, you'll hear from Applied Portfolio Management senior Pascal Laut, who was recognized overall as a top 100 trader in the balanced risk and return category. So, other significant accomplishments for our program. So let's take a look at how the portfolio did last year. It was kind of an average year. We matched the market, and of course, as you know, we still do this with a lower beta. Portfolio beta is now down to 0.81. So a good year overall. We like to know where our returns are coming from. Verizon was particularly good to us. We had some winners in healthcare. Obviously, we know how to pick healthcare stocks. Johnson & Johnson, one of the original stocks in the portfolio, up 28%. Bristol Myers and Medtronic also beating the market. Our one financial stock, Blackstone, showed some signs of life and gave us some very nice alpha this year. Consumer staples positions in PepsiCo and Procter & Gamble definitely did us right, almost doubling the market return. And one of our information technology stocks, Accenture, really lit things up. It was actually up quite a bit more until the technology sector fell behind. And one of our industrial positions matched the market. Now, of course, like any portfolio, we took a few lumps. Materials has been a tough sector. We did a position review of Barrick, and the stock just models up so well that students decided to stay the course for the long run. So when the price of gold perks up, maybe we'll see some life out of Barrick. We got rid of some of our small energy positions that just were not in the position that we wanted them to be. And some of our other information technology stocks took a hit. You'll hear reports on those tonight. In utilities, we definitely could have done a little bit better, although that sector did lag. A small telecom position that we have is a Verizon spinoff, didn't do very well for us. And in consumer discretionary, although that was a good sector, we would have been better off in luxury retail, for example. So our long-standing returns from McDonald's, which has been a real portfolio leader, took a little break. And then two of our industrial stocks also lagged considerably with that sector. So we like to know if we're good stock pickers. So on this chart, what I've done is I've taken our portfolio weights in each of the 10 market sectors and just applied them and played a little what-if game if we had just bought the sector ETFs and we didn't actively try to pick the best stock. Well, clearly, Verizon, outperforming all of telecom, was our big winner. And while we're pretty good in energy and Blackstone gave us a boost, you can see that, of course, like any portfolio, there's still room for improvement. And we didn't beat sector ETFs in some categories like industrials, healthcare, believe it or not, materials, and then there's McDonald's dragging us back in consumer discretionary. And then there's our lagging 12-month return. Of course, we also like to know where our risk comes from. So we compare the risk of our sector positions to the average sector betas as well. And we're really only over in financials. Blackstone is a high volatility stock, utilities barely. And so what we often don't get in huge returns, we make up for with good risk management. So you can see us being under the sector betas in many of the categories. And so there's McDonald's, Barrick, and Chevron dragging down the portfolio beta. And so here are the portfolio adjustments that were made this spring. We did sell off some small positions in some Canadian energy stocks, Encana and Cenovus. The students felt that they were overvalued based on their analysis. The unfavorable supply-demand conditions for natural gas extractors played into their thesis, and also they weren't comfortable with some of the implications of the way that shale oil or tar sands oil is being extracted. So we decided we could live without those energy positions. We did sell a long-standing holding. One of the original analysts on the Paycheck position is with us in the audience tonight, Carolyn Vanderstay. And the stock was a bit overvalued, and the students felt that the management's verbiage in the 10K about their growth plans were just not matching up with the actual implementation of a growth strategy. And so with that sort of confusion, it was just not the type of stock they wanted to hold any longer. We also sold off, or will sell off, a small telecom position. It's a Russian telecom stock. And here are the reports you'll hear tonight. Students are going to recommend some adjustments to the information technology position. We're going to move from a slight underweight to more of an overweight in information technology, first by trimming exposure to Microsoft and Intel, and adding a full position in Qualcomm to our IT holdings. Also, you'll hear buy recommendations for El Paso Pipeline and Energy, and Volkswagen, which I think of as an industrial stock, but Capital IQ thinks is a consumer discretionary stock, so we can talk about that. Starting the semester, these were our active sector weights, and you can see that we were underweight in consumer discretionary, small underweight in energy. We usually have a big underweight in financials because we don't have a great bank analysis process, and anybody who can completely figure out the banks right now would be a welcome guest speaker to a future portfolio management class. We do have long-standing overweights in healthcare, industrials, and Verizon has given us an overweight in telecom just organically by having such fantastic returns over the years. It's just sort of overweighted itself. And so after all of these adjustments, this is where the portfolio active weights or overweights will stand. We'll stay with healthcare and industrials and go overweight in information technology. The students feel that the sector has lagged long enough and it's time to get a little bolder move in that sector. We'll be moving some money around so Verizon won't look so overweighted. And probably the only glaring underweight is energy. The students modeled a lot of companies, but found a lot of overvaluation. And they have a very tepid thesis on economic growth for the year and felt that it wasn't time to just buy any energy stock, but instead to make a selective buy of El Paso Pipeline.